Hi, and welcome to Wonder Years Wednesday. I'm Wendy Sellers, but the kids nicknamed me the Puberty Lady because I love to talk about puberty. As many of you know, schools were closed this spring because of the pandemic, and since it's the traditional time of year to teach about the birds and the bees and puberty, a lot of schools were not able to teach those lessons, and so they turned it back over to parents, caregivers, and other trusted adults to teach kids about puberty. And parents really want to do a great job, but I talk to parents a lot and they say, I don't know how to start. I don't have any tools. What do I do? So I decided to launch a series of book reviews so that I can provide some information for parents and other trusted adults to select books to read on their own and then with their kids and allow their kids to read. So this week we're going to talk about a book that's written by Robie Harris, and the illustrations are by Michael Emberley. And this dynamic duo has done a family library of 3 books for young people starting at age 4 on up. The one for 4-year-olds and up is called It's Not the Stork, and I don't own that book. The next one up is called It's So Amazing, a book about eggs, sperm, birth, babies, and families. And we won't be reviewing that one today, but that one is recommended for 7 on up. And then the book that I'll be reviewing today is the third in the series, and it's for ages um, 10 to 13, and it is titled It's Perfectly Normal: Changing Bodies, Growing Up, Sex, and Sexual Health. And this softcover book was published first in 1994, and it was updated in 2004, 2009, and the fourth edition, which was the 20th anniversary edition, was updated in 2014. Now it's 2020, but this book is a classic, and it has 92 pages that are just full of information. You can see it's an oversized book, so it holds a lot of information, and it's for kids of all genders. And this book has more than 1 million copies in print. It's organized into 6 parts with smaller subsections in each of the 6 parts. So I'll just go through the book quickly and tell you what it includes. So the first part is the introduction, and it's a brief introduction, but it introduces these 2 characters. I want to hold it up a little bit: the bird and the bee. And these 2 little characters are found on almost every page through the whole book. And they say funny things to each other. And so I think kids will look forward to finding the bird and the bee on each page and seeing what they have to say about the topic that is in that section. The first section is called What is Sex? And this section defines sex in 5 different ways: gender, reproduction, sexual attraction, sexual intercourse, and sexual orientation. The next section is titled Our Bodies, and it's about just what you would think it would be about. It's about the human body and all the reproductive parts. And so it talks about the variety of bodies and has drawings of various naked bodies to illustrate the variety of bodies and the normalcy of that diversity in body types. It explains the female external and internal reproductive organs, and it includes the clitoris. Then it goes on to describe the male internal and external reproductive system, and it includes circumcised and uncircumcised penises. Next, it explains how people have various ways of talking about bodies, including what they call everyday words, which we would maybe call slang, and it also says they can be called dirty words, or that people will use scientific words, and so it uses those 2 terms. The next section is called Puberty. And this section focuses on the changes that people typically experience during puberty. And it explains that these changes are caused by hormones. And it starts out talking about, so it shows the changes in the male bodied person and in a female bodied person. And then it goes on to talk about the travels of the egg in female bodied people and menstruation and menstrual products. The travels of the sperm are described next, and it includes things like erections, ejaculation, and nocturnal emissions. Then it goes on to talk about the emotional changes and how it's typical to worry about body changes and maybe developing earlier or later than your peers, and that's normal. It talks about teasing and having boyfriends or girlfriends. And then it also talks about masturbation as a typical thing that some people do and some people don't, and it explains orgasms. The next part, part 4, is called Families and Babies. And this section is um, about all different kinds of families. It gives examples and includes illustrations of all kinds of families and explains why it can be challenging for kids and young teenagers to have a baby and the responsibilities that go along with raising a baby and being a parent. Next, it explains genes and chromosomes, and it talks about twins, which kids this age love to hear about and talk about. And then it goes on to describe vaginal sexual intercourse in some detail. It explains that a person can get pregnant, how that happens, and clarifies a lot of popular myths about how you do and don't get pregnant. And then it briefly describes birth control, condoms, and oral and anal sex. Next, it goes on to describe pregnancy and the importance of good prenatal care. Birth is explained, and it includes vaginal birth, C-section, breech, and forceps. And then it talks about how circumcision is done or not done, and who does it and when. And then it briefly talks about premature births. The next section talks about other ways that babies can arrive, as it says. And it includes an extensive list of modern ways that babies can be conceived and delivered, such as in vitro fertilization, egg donation, artificial insemination, sperm donation, frozen eggs, surrogates, and adoption. Part 5 is called Decisions. And this section talks about decisions about postponing sex and abstinence and birth control or contraception. A variety of contraceptive methods are explained and illustrated with cartoon illustrations, like you can see samples here, and emergency contraception is explained also. It encourages talking to a parent or healthcare provider about questions about postponing sex and contraception. And it does discuss abortion and the laws that affect abortion. The next section is titled Staying Healthy. And again, you can see the cartoon drawings that are throughout. This section talks about the pros and cons of using technology and how to avoid trouble when you're online using your technology. It warns the reader that websites can be inaccurate or disturbing, including pornography or porn, and it encourages the reader to tell an adult if they see anything online that is disturbing or confusing for them. It lists rules to stay safe online and talks about sexting and warns the reader that whatever goes on the internet will be there forever, that you can't necessarily take it back and make it disappear. It discusses sexual abuse and harassment and warns against bullying people online. And related to any kind of harassment or abuse, it suggests saying no and telling an adult, and keep telling until someone can help you. Next, it talks about sexually transmitted diseases, checkups, and vaccines against sexually transmitted diseases. And then it talks about HIV and AIDS and how it is and is not transmitted. And lastly, it encourages making healthy, responsible choices for their whole lives, including, other health habits. At the end, it has an index, which makes it really easy to look up topics that you may want to find and go through with your child. And so that's a nice feature. So ways this book is and is not inclusive. The book is very inclusive. It includes gay, straight, and bi attractions. It talks in terms of the gender binary, in other words, males and females, but it also explains transgender. It includes a blend of race representations and abilities, including people with crutches and wheelchairs, and it's very inclusive of all body types. The book uses the terms he or she, not the more modern gender neutral pronouns or inclusive pronouns like they and them or any of the other ones. And it also includes topics like masturbation and abortion and other sensitive topics by presenting multiple perspectives, not just one perspective. In other words, it does not tell people what to think. It tells them the range of beliefs that people have about those topics. A couple of details that I noticed. It is a little bit outdated because it was written and published in 2014, and the technology and the terms have changed so much since 2014. So it does not include the current treatments for HIV infection or PrEP. And it uses binary terms, and some of the terms used for sexual orientation and transgender are a little bit outdated, but again, those terms change about every 2 or 3 years. It also explains sexual intercourse in some detail. And so if you want a tool to use to help your child know what sexual intercourse is, this does a good job of explaining it. The term rape is briefly mentioned and defined, so you want to be alert and aware of that as you're reading this with a child. In summary, I was really interested to learn that this book is often on the banned book list. And it's also a bestseller, one of the most popular books out there. It has a straightforward, no-nonsense approach to all of the information it delivers, but it does that with a cute and funny cartoon drawings that soften the information. Also, it's easy to look up topics because of the index as they become relevant, and it makes it a good reference book for you to leave in your child's room so that they can look up things as they grow and change and become interested in different topics at different stages of their development. If you're a parent who prefers to hold back on providing information to your child about sex, you probably will feel uncomfortable with this book. And I just want to remind parents that many parents make the mistake of thinking their child is not ready for information when their child is ready for information before we as adults want to realize they're ready. So your kids are probably ready for this book before you're ready for them to see it. And if you read it together, this book provides a great starting point for discussions about family values on a lot of sensitive topics. So it's a great tool for initiating those discussions about family values. And you'll probably learn something new reading this book. I know I did, and I'm sure your child will too. So thank you for joining me today for Wonder Years Wednesday, and I hope that you will write your comments or questions in the comment section. I will put some information in the comment section also. I will include a place to buy, a link to buy the book. I'll also include a link to Goodreads. They do book reviews, and you can see what other people have to say about the book and not just rely on my opinion. And also, if you need to contact me, my contact information will be there also. So thank you again. I will see you next week for Wonder Years Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. And until then, please stay well. Bye-bye.